Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Your Faith's Story on the Cultivate Your Faith podcast. Dr. Vivia Haye has been telling us about her life stories and her transition from Jamaica to Florida, the United States, and her experiences as a young girl, having lost her dad early on, and then the challenges she faced as an immigrant in the United States. But, you know, the faith that her dad instilled in her, and that, especially that lady she lived with while she was during her final year of high school, brought her structure and taught her how to be a fighter, in my own words. All right, so you should go back and listen to episode 1. Dr. Haye, thank you for staying with us. We left off where you were in Fort Lauderdale, still a young lady, still fighting forward, but having faith and trust that God will work things out for you. So let's pick up where we left off.
So I would entitle this section From No Hope to a Glimmer of Hope.
Wow.
And
okay.
I say that because I started out and thought things were going to go well. Things didn't go well. I was in Miami. I tried for a whole month. Nothing happened. No hope. And now I'm in Fort Lauderdale, a glimmer of hope, connecting back with family again and reuniting with family and, you know, transitioning to a new county. And so I reconnected with my cousin, and he lived in an apartment with his wife and had a young baby, and told him about my plight and everything. And he says, sure, come on up. You know, I certainly will make sure that we find a job for you. And so he made some connections and connected me with some friends of his, one of whom was working at Budget Rent-A-Car back then in those days. And she put in a word for me and I got a job. Finally, I got a job.
Yeah, I like that. She put in a word for you.
Yes, she put in a word for me, got a job. And my experience on the job was interesting because coming from a Caribbean background, I'm used to yes, sir, no, ma'am, you know. And so trying to work with that here was kind of different in that my boss turned to me and she said, don't you dare call me yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Call me Mary. And it was just so weird to me, you know, so that was in itself another thing to get used to. I worked on that job for about a year, and there were some challenges because my cousin's friend started to take me to work initially, but then she moved to a different area in the county. And so it was hard for her to come back and forth. So I had to learn to take the bus. And the bus system here is a little bit different, as you know, than what we have in Jamaica.
Certainly.
So I had to take the bus, and where I worked, I had to take 3 buses to get to work. Can you imagine that? 3 buses to get to work. And this was now heading up into, say, mid-October. I got here in June of 85. This was maybe now August, September, October, somewhere there. So the weather started to change. And I had to get up early in the morning to get the bus. And as the weather got colder and colder, they said to me, you know, you need some kind of a jacket or something. Sometimes the temperature dips like in the 40s. And you can imagine going on a bus that early in the morning. I had to get up like 5 o'clock in the morning to catch the 3 buses to get to work. And there were mornings when I just felt like I just wanted to throw in the towel because I was so cold. I was shivering. I remember getting this coat from a thrift store and wearing it, but it just wasn't warm enough. And one morning, I remember standing at the bus stop, and this car drove, and the person slowed down, and they said, "Do you need a ride?" And back then in the 80s, I don't know, it wasn't as violent as it is now. People were more
Right.
trusting.
Yeah.
And but I was kind of scared at the same time. But somehow something said to me, go ahead and say yes. And I said, yes,
Yeah, the Lord
that's
was
fine.
with
And the
you.
person says, yes, the Lord was definitely with me. And I
Right.
went into this car with this individual that I did not know. But lo and behold, I believe that man was an angel from above.
Mm.
And every single morning around the same time, he would pull up to where I would be, and he would pick me up. He would take me to the closest bus stop so I wouldn't have to catch one of the buses, so I could get to work on time. And that happened for months. And then one day I did
Wow.
not see him anymore. I didn't see him anymore one day. I don't know what happened. You know what I think happened? Yes. At the job, I found out that there was a couple who lived just like a few chains from where I was staying. And they said, we can give you a ride back and forth. And I said, here the Lord
Okay.
provided again.
Oh,
And so I didn't have to
yeah.
take the bus anymore. Look at that. God just found someone for me
That's
right
amazing.
on
That's
the
an
job.
amazing story. Yeah.
Amazing. And so we continued with that. I worked for that place for about a year. And then I decided that I needed to go back to college. I'm like, this is not
Yeah.
what I want to do. I was filing. I'm
Right.
like, no, this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. I need to get to college.
Right.
And so I applied to go to Broward Community College in the year 1986.
Mm.
So this was maybe almost a year since I was here, right?
Yeah.
And
That's a
started
lot.
college in
I like to say,
1986. Yeah.
right. And I like to say in 1 year, that's just a lot. But you kept your focus and you were determined to go to college. And that's noteworthy.
Mm-hmm.
It's noteworthy. A young lady, moving from Jamaica to the United States with things not necessarily going your way or were just very difficult. But you were determined to go to college. You wanted to be Dr. Haye. You wanted to become a doctor, and that was your goal.
No, getting there wasn't easy though, because during that time,
Right.
also that year, I also transitioned to other jobs. So I found myself working a total of 3 jobs before I started college. 3 jobs,
Right.
trying to make ends meet. And I say to, young people who just come here, they want to get rich quick. And I'm like, I saved my first paycheck. I should have brought this stuff out to show you. I was making $3.35 an hour. And I went up to $3.65 an hour. It was just, so amazing back then. And how I worked 3 jobs. And when I decided I had to go back to school, I had to let go of one of the jobs. I was working at the Budget Place, rent a car. I was working at a department store back then called Sears. For those of you who are oldies, you probably will remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also working at Popeyes, the chicken place, Popeyes. And so those 3 jobs kind of helped me out a lot. But then I decided I had to give one of them up because I wanted to go to college. And so started college in 86. And that in itself was another faith journey for me. Starting college, it's a little different here than in the Caribbean. You have different processes you have to go through. But when I started college, I could not really do medicine back then. So I decided, you know what, let me start out and be a nurse first and then take it from there. And so I decided to enroll in the nursing program, got in the nursing program and started studying. And I didn't know that that was going to be another challenge that I would face, because back then in the 80s, there was a lot of discrimination. I know this is Black History Month and I'm proud of my Black history, But,
Right.
we went through so much back then as students. We were discriminated on, especially if you were from the Caribbean. I remember one of my professors coming into the classroom and saying to me, Blacks are destined to fail, especially if they're from the Caribbean. And so those
And this was
challenges
1987, thereabout.
87, thereabout, 86,
Yeah.
87, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to bring in NAACP. I mean, it was so bad,
Wow.
But we proved them wrong. We decided to band together as students. We called in NAACP. We prayed. We lobbied together. And we gained the victory because not only did we not graduate from nursing school, but our valedictorian, believe it or not, was a Black young lady from Jamaica. So
Wow.
that was just such a proud moment for me, a proud moment for me.
So here you are in a college in Florida, in the nursing school, and you started facing biases and prejudice, even from your own instructors. And you all got together as a group of Black students and decided nothing was going to stop you, right?
Yes, nothing. We were resolute. We were like, nothing is going to stop us. Not because we're from the Caribbean means that we are lower than anyone else. And we banded together as a team.
Wonder, yeah. I can't wait for my daughters who are African Americans to watch this, because the path that you have taken is such a difficult path, and the challenges that you face. I know each era has its own challenges, but this is something else, and it speaks to who you are today. And God's goodness in your life. Let's keep that lens of faith going. Yeah.
Definitely. God was really with us. And a lot of us back then, we were very God-fearing, and we prayed. We came together as a group and we said, no, where are we going to take this?
Can you give us an example? Because I know you said your instructor looked down on you guys and what would happen. But can you give an example? I'd like to probe a little bit of if you can recall. I know this has been some time, because I wanted to kind of fill in the blank so the audience can hear the challenges you had then as a Black immigrant female. Those are three negatives back then. A Black immigrant female at higher education with an instructor or with a system that was built not to facilitate you going through, but yet you can. So can you speak to a very specific experience, just to fill in the blank and give us a taste? I know we want to talk about more things, but I just wanted to ask.
Yes, I recall vividly experience with one of my classmates. She was a little older than me, and we were very close friends. She was a more motherly figure in the program. And we would go to clinicals where we had to go to the hospital. We got our patients. We had to make sure we prepared our information to give to the instructor. But what they would do is when they would question you as to your information, and they would add questions that did not fit in with what you were supposed to ask, that were even more challenging. And if you could not answer, then they would keep at you and keep badgering you to give them an answer. And then they would say, okay, you're not able to answer this question. That's fine. You're not going to be passing this clinical. And so they kept badgering my friend, and she would cry. There were days when she would cry because she was just so fearful of coming to class because of what, she knew that she was going to experience, or they would give us the most challenging patients that, things that we did not study about yet, and expected you to have the knowledge to respond to the questions that they had. And so she was a little more, I would say, flustered than a lot of us was. In addition to there were other students, they would just pick on you, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so they kept picking at her until she just, decided that, she couldn't take it anymore. And she came out of the program,
She dropped out of the program. Yeah.
She dropped out of the program because the pressure, they kept pressuring her,
Right. I understand.
But, The program was very tedious. It was a very rigorous program. I remember the last 8 weeks of nursing school were the hardest for me because I had no other support. So I had to work and go to school. So what I had to do back then, I had to work 40 hours full time and go to school full time. School was Monday through Friday. So I would go to school Monday through Friday. Then I would leave classes at noon on a Friday, and I would have to go to work by 1 o'clock. And I was working in the hospital by then, because after you finish one semester, you were qualified to work in the hospital setting. Okay, so I would go to work from 1 p.m. to 12 midnight on a Friday. On a Saturday, I would go to work from 8 a.m. in the morning until 12 midnight. And then I would come back to work on a Sunday from 8 a.m. to 12 midnight. So you're talking about doing 2 16-hour shifts and a 9-hour shift to be able to make 40 hours a week. And so the last 8 weeks of nursing school for me was very, very challenging. I remembered like about the 6th or 7th week where my body just broke down. I just couldn't, make it any further. And I remembered going to bed that night and having a dream. Now, I'm not sure what your take is on out-of-body experiences, but I had an experience. I had a dream. I had a dream. And this is kind of this all played into my story, because it kind of gave me that encouragement to move forward. I dreamt that I was at a certain place and I was walking through the crowds, but the individuals that were around me, they were jeering at me and, challenging me and making snide remarks. And they started to beat on my body to the point where I lost consciousness and fell on the ground. And during the dream, as I'm recalling it, I remember being on the ground and they were badgering my body, but I was able to see from above what was happening in my body. I'm not sure how you feel, but I'm just explaining what I went through.
It's a dream. We're following you.
Yes. And I was looking down on my body and seeing how they were beating me. And I kept saying, there were like 2 persons beside me. I would consider them angels. And I kept saying, why am I going through all this? Why are they beating up on me like this? And it's like the persons kept saying, don't worry, just wait, you will see. Don't worry, just wait, you will see. And they kept badgering me to the point where there was no more life left in my body. And after about a few moments, there was a pause, and then I saw my body raise up. And I started to walk through the crowds, and the same people that were badgering me, they were like saying, isn't that the lady that they were beating? Look at her. Look at her. Isn't that the lady that they were beating? And I was in the dream and I was saying, Lord, what is the meaning of this? Why am I going through all of this? What does this mean? And it's like the persons were saying to me, don't worry, we're going to explain everything to you. And the next thing I know was that the Lord gave me an interpretation. And he said to me, your life has been like this. You've been badgered. You've gone through turmoil after turmoil, challenge after challenge, but you're going to rise up. And that's what's going to happen. You're going to rise up just like you see that body raise up. I'm going to raise you up and you're going to be victorious. And you're talking about week 6 of the last 2 weeks of nursing school.
Of clinicals,
and that dream, that dream gave me the lift that I needed to push to the finishing line, because it's like I was at the finish, almost nearing the finishing line. Yeah. And here was this dream that came to kind of solidify my faith and to say, don't worry, God is with you. He's going to see you through. You're going to be victorious. And I continued through working, and I made it to the end. I was able to graduate. You know, it was amazing.
I feel like I'm with you right there at your graduation right now. I'm so excited. What a story. What a story. Thank you for sharing. And actually, I enjoy that dream, you sharing it. It's powerful. And God communicates with us in different ways. And I think that dream was timely. Dr. Haye, yes. I don't know how to kind of direct the conversation. It's all beautiful, but we have limited time, and I know you wanted to share much more, how you get to graduate school and today being a professor, and there's so much more for you to tell. And then there's a faith story, because there was a time that you were a Jehovah's Witness, then a Church of God, and then an Adventist today. So I'm going to take a quick break, and we're going to have to decide where we go next to wrap up in about 15 to 20 minutes of conversation. So thank you for sharing all these nice stories. Friends, I know you're enjoying it. And actually, I am enjoying this experience, this conversation with Dr. Haye. And I know that there are others out there that their life stories resonate with hers, and they're strengthened. You know, when you can sit and listen to someone else's story and you see how God has been there, and it reminds you, it makes clear that God's been there for you. And these stories are just so important to tell as we strengthen each other. We're going to take a quick break and come back to our third part for this episode, this conversation with Dr. Vivia Haye. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Cultivate Your Faith. We cultivate our faith by feeding on the Word of God. By sharing, we receive. By receiving, we grow. Will you share as you have received? Join us next week as we continue our journey. Go to CultivateurFaith.com to sign up to our email list, subscribe for new episodes, and find the resources mentioned in the show notes.